Okay, so if you want to go from sounding like a beginner on guitar to somebody who's totally awesome, you're going to need to learn to mute strings while you're playing with your left hand. I'm going to show you some examples of without and then with. What is going on? I'm Steve. Hope you're doing just amazing today. So you can see right there in those 4 examples, when you don't mute the strings that you're not supposed to hit at the right time, it just sounds like a total mess. But in this video, I'm going to show you how to do those 4 songs right there and use your thumb and even some of your other fingers right here to mute the high or the low strings when you need to make all your favorite songs just come to life and sound amazing. And so you won't sound lame in the process. Now, I remember learning this early on in guitar and thinking, oh my gosh, it's hard enough to strum. It's hard enough to get the fingers in the right positions for the chords. And now you're telling me I need to mute strings also that I'm not supposed to do somehow by, some magical trick. It was like when I was learning how to play golf, which I have not succeeded at. I was like, so I gotta remember like 80 things when I do a swing. And if I do one thing wrong, they all go wrong. It sounds overwhelming, but if you just take it step by step, you will get there and it'll be awesome. And you'll be awesome because, you are awesome. All right, let's get into it. I'll show you these 4 examples right here. Let's start off with that first one, Pinball Wizard. What a cool song. So we begin here in A major. And for this one, do this. Take this finger and put it on the 7th fret of the D string, and then the 6th fret of the G, and then 5th fret of the B, 5th fret of the B. And when you hit the open A string, like that, and then the open E string, like that, the high E string, well, if you only hit those 5 strings, sounds great, right? Well, if you hit that one, you get that open E string down there. That does not sound great. And especially when Pete Townsend, he goes crazy and he goes like that. He does these big monster strokes. If you ever wonder how somebody's just like totally swinging their arm or whatever like that, it's because they've learned how to mute the strings. And you can see what my thumb did. I brought my thumb just over the top of the guitar. I'm just playing the same thing. So instead of going like that, it sounds pretty, but it doesn't sound like Pinball Wizard. Well, if you take your thumb and just barely touch that 5th fret, or where it doesn't really matter wherever, but it just happens to land here on the 5th fret. Listen to that, what happens with the string. So all I'm doing is just barely touching it on there. If I let go, it does that. If I do that, it does that. Again, it doesn't really matter. I could do it on the 6th fret, it doesn't matter. Like that. Sounds cool, doesn't it? And if you put this pinky on the 7th fret of the G string, like that, it goes pretty cool right there. And it's all because of that thumb. Now, this finger right here is going vertical and it's allowing me to hit that right there. When I go down, check this out, if you go, take off that pinky. When you go down 2 frets, you're at the F, and it still sounds good right there. I'm only gonna focus on these notes for a second. And if I go down 2 more frets, that's not what it's supposed to do. So then you take this this finger, and you sort of barely let it touch that string right there. In other words, when you go like this, you go down 2 frets, I'm only hitting these notes right here for a second. That note right there still sounds really good, but when you go down 2 more frets, it doesn't sound so good. And so I use this finger, like on that fret, to just sort of do that. So you sort of learn when to sort of bend your fingers and add a thumb to the whole song. So on this one, it goes, I'm letting this ring out, but I'm using my thumb to dampen that one. Then you go down 2 frets, but also I need to bring the thumb even further to try to stop that A string from ringing out. Pretty cool. So the thumb is actually not pressing, actually, sorry, it is pressing that because it's part of the G string, but then I'm bringing it even further until it's just touching that A string like this, like that. So I'm sort of dampening that string, and now I'm hitting it as part of the G chord, and I'm bringing this further over right there, like that. And then when you go down to the F, I'm doing it again. I'm hitting the low F note right there, muting that string, and then I'm using this finger to do that. Okay, that sounds pretty advanced, but if you just start with that A chord, it's not that hard. Let's move on to the next song. Let's go to Freebird. Everybody knows this one, right? Well, it's in D major. The bad version, if you accidentally hit that string right there, that open E, is I'm as free as a bird now. Well, that isn't part of that chord at all right there. So somehow you need to mute it. Well, it's so easy if you just lay this finger right here, like that. Now you can strum the whole thing. And even if you hit that A string right there, still sounds good because that is being muted by the thumb. Now what you could do is even bring it further, again, that thumb further over to where it's like that and goes. Listen to that. I'm doing the 4 strings of a D chord right there, a little out of tune. Let me tune that up. Okay, and you got the 4 notes of the D chord right there, but this is sort of blocking both of those. Pretty cool, but you don't need to. You just do that one. A major, and again, I'm using my thumb here to sort of block that out. To B minor. I'm playing a regular B minor. Now I'm hitting all the notes right here. You can bar it right here. Then it goes to a C. Well, if you play a C major with that open E, again, it sort of sounds like a mess. So just take your thumb and set it right there, you know, right into anywhere you want to. Just let it, but don't press too hard or else you'll do that, which is not what you want. You go. So listen to that. Listen to the difference between a C chord without it. This one is actually in the C major chord structure, but that makes the C chord ring out without that bad low note right there, or that dominant low note. To G major, no problems there, but back to A, that's where you want that thumb again. In other words, in most of these songs, you're trying to really emphasize the low part of the A chord before you go to the D. But without the thumb, you accidentally hit this note, and it just sounds bad right there. All right, let's go on to the next one. Let's do some blues, and then I'll show you the Led Zeppelin one at the end. That one's really cool. All right, some blues is pretty cool. You're in A major, and I'm gonna put my whole finger across the second fret of the D, G, and B strings. And I'm not gonna worry about doing an A major. I'm just sort of doing this and going. Well, that's the version where you're accidentally letting this low note ring out. You don't want that. I've got a video on how to play the blues for beginners. It's really easy and cool, and you know, opens up a lot of Stevie Ray Vaughan songs with that swing rhythm. You see why that sounds good? Because where's my thumb? My thumb is just hanging out enough to mute that string right there. Without it, it goes like this. And if I palm mute, sounds a little bit better, but not that much better. So basically, just take those 2 notes, open A, and that second fret of the D string, not using my thumb, but it's only because I'm picking really carefully. But Stevie Ray Vaughan, I mean, he's constantly just digging in like this. Well, he does it by muting different strings right here. And if I even played a whole A major chord, check this out. I'm actually hitting all of these middle 4 strings right here, but my thumb is preventing that one. But this finger, guess what it's doing too? It's just laying off enough to mute that string that hit that string. Cool. And then when you go up to the D, you got a D blues. So as I went right there, as I was just strumming, I started muting the right string. So this finger right here, this time, see this finger? This one's doing the muting. It's hitting the 3rd fret of the B string, but it's leaning over just enough to mute that E string right there. So like that. This one's doing the rest of the D chord. And then I use my thumb to come all the way over and mute the E string and the A string like that. So again, the thumb is just like barely laying down enough. So really I'm hitting these 3 notes right there. So I'm doing all this strumming, big strumming. I'm hitting all 6 strings. Ready? I'm literally hitting. Hear that? Listen, muted because of my thumb. Part of the D major, and then the last one is being muted by that string right there. To just muting just this note with my thumb. I released it a little bit to open up that A string, and then this finger is just sort of muting those top strings. All right, let's do the last one. This is Led Zeppelin. So this one's really cool. I'm not going to show you how to play all the notes because it's a bit more advanced and it would take too long, but it goes like this. So just play, actually I'll show you this. Play a C major, but instead of a regular C major, you're using the 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the A string, and then this finger on the 2nd fret of the D string, 3rd finger on the, if I said 3rd right there, this is the 2nd finger. This one, 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, and try this, check this out. If you just strum that chord, but don't hit this low E note right there, sounds great. What happens if you hit the low E? Doesn't sound so great. I mean, it's technically like in the chord or in the scale, but it doesn't sound that great. What sounds worse is if you take this finger off and put it on the 2nd fret of the A string and leave this one here and go. But hit all the notes, ready? That's like totally not it. In other words, I mean, I guess it's in there, but it just still doesn't sound good. But here's where it really sounds bad. If you want to try this, put your 1st finger on the 1st fret of the, A string, and then take, whether it's your 3rd finger or your pinky, on the 3rd fret of the B string, like this, and go. Well, that sounds really cool. I'm only hitting 2 strings with my fingers. Again, 1st fret of the A, 3rd fret of the B, and in between you're letting the open D, G strings ring out, and you're going, well, that sounds amazing if you go like this. Well, why? Because I'm I'm muting with my thumb. I'm muting that string. So if you don't do it, it sounds like this. Terrible, because that open, let me move that finger out of the way. If that open E string is ringing out, and this is constantly ringing out, you want to mute both these strings. Well, how do you do it? This finger you actually could use this finger to mute that string right there. I think that's too hard. So I just use my thumb, just barely set it down. And then this finger, the pinky, is muting that string right there. See that? I'm putting my pinky here, but you just sort of lay it down a little bit to where it goes. Hear that? So there's the open E, and I just lay my pinky down a little bit like that. So here it goes. You just slide it up 2 frets. It looks like I'm doing stuff with this finger, and if I can move those out of the way, you just go from down to up 2 frets right there. So this one's a bit of a spider shape and it'll cramp your hand, but it's really needed to go. See, I'm muting the low note, letting the high note ring out, but when I go to this, I was muting both the high E and the low E. So there's 4 songs right there that you really need to mute with those left fingers to make it sound amazing. But I think you can do great. Just practice these, pick one of them or do all of them, and let me know how you do in the comments. I'd love to hear it. If it was helpful, like and subscribe on your way out, and I'll catch you next time for some more 3-minute guitar lessons for all of my song lessons. But for stuff like this, I go longer because it's needed. All right, catch you later. See ya.